"You're just jealous of real success," my mother said, her voice sharp like glass. Her phone buzzed in her hand as she posted another round of photos in the family group chat, this time of my sister, Marin, smiling next to a man in a tailored suit, holding a crystal plaque from her company's latest promotion event. I glanced at the screen. The caption read, "Proud Mom Moment. Marin just keeps soaring. So blessed to witness real ambition in action. Real ambition." I was sitting right there in my own apartment on the other end of that chat thread, watching every heart emoji pile in from cousins, uncles, and family friends. Nobody asked where I was or what I'd been up to. They never did. I didn't reply. Not out of weakness, not because I was jealous, but because I'd learned that silence sometimes speaks louder than rage. Because what they didn't know was that behind the scenes, while Marin was hosting marketing luncheons and leading corporate brainstorms, I was building something, quietly, relentlessly. While they smiled for cameras, I coded through nights and rewrote patents no one but my team cared about, and I knew the day would come when they'd see it. That moment, my mother's voice, smug and casual in its cruelty, was branded into me, not because it was the first time she dismissed me, but because this time, I didn't flinch. I didn't fight back. I let her think she was right. Because what she didn't know was that in 2 weeks, her beloved daughter's company would be attending a private gala to celebrate the launch of our joint project. A gala where I wasn't just attending, I was being honored. And I wasn't just part of the team. I was the reason the project existed at all. That moment was coming. But right then, I stayed quiet. I watched as Marin's face flooded our family feed. Polished hair, champagne glass, that same perfect smile Mom had framed on the living room wall since college. I didn't hate Marin, but I couldn't pretend the imbalance didn't ache. She got applause. I got overlooked. She got celebrated. I got advice. What I built didn't fit into the world they celebrated. It wasn't photogenic. It didn't sparkle. But it was real. It was mine. And it was about to take center stage. They thought success looked like a high-rise office and glossy LinkedIn updates. They didn't know that real success sometimes starts in quiet rooms, lit by the glow of a laptop screen, fueled by nothing but belief. So when my mom called me jealous, I just smiled. Let her think that. Let them all believe it. Because in a few days, under a ceiling of gold chandeliers and designer suits, I would take the stage. And my mother would be there, standing just a few feet from the spotlight she never imagined I'd step into. And when they called my name, not Marin's, and handed me that award, the silence that followed would speak louder than anything I could have ever said in that group chat. This is what happened, and it changed everything. Most days, I liked the quiet. My apartment was small, tucked above a bakery in a part of Austin that still smelled like old books and fresh coffee. I lived alone. By choice. No roommates, no pets, just space for me to think, create, and build what no one in my family ever asked about. My work wasn't flashy. I wasn't the kind of person you'd see giving TED Talks or showing off a corner office on social media. I worked as a lead developer for Bright Rift Labs, a startup focused on immersive tech. We built things that people didn't fully understand yet, which meant our successes didn't come with confetti. They came in quiet updates, long nights, and breakthroughs that didn't always photograph well. That didn't bother me. I wasn't looking for praise. At least that's what I told myself most days. But when you grow up in a family where praise is currency, where your value is measured by titles and likes, the silence starts to cut. My sister Marin was the family's golden standard. She was 3 years older, always poised, always prepared, always dressed like she walked off a magazine page. She worked at Devara, a luxury lifestyle brand with a sleek downtown office and a culture that thrived on polished ambition. She was good at what she did. I never denied that. But somewhere along the way, her success became the yardstick for everyone else's worth, including mine. My mother, Judith, made sure of that. She had a talent for turning compliments into comparisons. Her love was loud when it came to Marin. Posts on Facebook, framed awards, dinner party stories that ended in applause. For me, her support came in questions. When are you going to get a real job? Do you even have benefits? Are you still doing that tech thing? It wasn't that she hated me. I think, in her own way, she believed she was helping. She wanted me to live a life she could understand, one she could explain to her friends, but I had stopped trying to translate my world into something that made sense to her. She didn't want the explanation. She wanted a version of me that fit into her definition of success. Dad was different. Greg Wynn was quiet, a retired mechanic who spent most of his time in the garage or on the porch reading books about astronomy. He didn't say much, but when he did, it landed. He wasn't impressed by titles. He cared about effort, consistency, and whether you could sleep at night knowing you did your best. He didn't always defend me in front of Mom, but in small ways, he let me know he saw me. Still, in this family, visibility was selective. Marin shone. I blended in. That night, after Mom posted the promotion photos and made her comment about real success, I closed my laptop and stared at the wall. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. It was just one more moment in a lifetime of moments where I was reminded that in her eyes, I hadn't arrived. No matter what I built, it didn't count until she could show it off. But what she didn't know was that I was already working on something that mattered. Our team at Bright Rift had just finalized a new interactive system that was about to change the way Devara, Marin's own company, connected with its customers. They had quietly partnered with us on a test rollout. Marin didn't know that I was behind it. No one at her firm did. I liked it that way. I wanted the work to speak first. Still, part of me wanted her to see it. I wanted my mother to recognize me, not as Marin's sister or her creative daughter, but as someone who mattered in her own right. Someone who didn't need to copy success to create something original. I looked around my apartment. There was no award shelf, no designer couch, just a desk, my monitors, a wall covered in dry erase notes, and a single sticky note above my screen that said, "Make it real." That's what I had been doing for years. While Marin climbed ladders, I was building the ground beneath them, and while they kept looking up, I had been quietly laying the foundation for what came next. That night, I didn't reply to the group chat. I didn't call to congratulate Marin. I just opened a new document and started writing the code for the next release. Because I wasn't jealous of real success. I was redefining it. It was a Saturday morning when the group chat buzzed again. I had just poured my coffee and sat down at my desk to debug a new feature we were preparing to launch. The ping came with a photo. Marin again, standing next to a white marble wall engraved with her company's logo. She was holding another award, something shiny and gold, and smiling the way she always did in those pictures, as if she had already rehearsed every angle. The caption was from Mom. "Our superstar does it again. Vice President of Brand Strategy. I raised a warrior." Within minutes, the thread was filled with congratulations. Aunt Leslie posted a line of clapping emojis. My cousin Miles wrote, "Legend moves only." Even our grandfather, who rarely texts, chimed in with, "That's my girl." No one said anything to me, not a "how's work," not even a thumbs up on the meme I had posted 2 days earlier. Just silence. Not angry, not cruel. Just the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're watching your family through a glass wall. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before locking my phone and turning back to my code. My hands moved, but my mind was somewhere else. The sound of Marin's success had always been loud. The sound of my own effort had always been quiet. I had convinced myself that I didn't need the volume, but sitting there in that moment, I felt it. A small, sharp ache in the center of my chest. Not envy, just exhaustion. A few hours later, Mom called. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hey," I said, trying to sound steady. "Did you see the pictures?" she asked, skipping past any greeting. "Yeah, I saw them. Looks like a big deal." She's the youngest VP in their company's history. Can you believe that? I told her hard work pays off. She just goes after what she wants. No distractions, no waiting around for the perfect opportunity. She just moves. There was a pause, and then she said it. "You should take notes. You're smart, Talia, but you're always stuck in your ideas. You could be doing so much more if you didn't keep hiding." I bit down on the inside of my cheek. I didn't want to fight. Not because I couldn't, but because I knew it wouldn't change anything. She wasn't really asking me to succeed. She was asking me to become someone else, someone she could explain at dinner parties. "I'm not hiding," I said. "I'm working." "Sure, but working on what? You never share anything. How is anyone supposed to be proud of you if they don't even know what you're doing?" That line hit harder than she probably intended. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest in a way that exposed the gap between us. She needed something to show, something that looked like a trophy. What I was building didn't come with photo ops. Not yet. "I'll let you go," she said finally, her voice clipped and disappointed. "Anyway, Marin's going to New York next week for a board retreat. She invited me to come with her. Should be fun." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there in the silence that followed, watching the cursor blink on my screen. There was a part of me that wanted to scream, not at her, but at the whole system she believed in, at the idea that value came in the form of titles, offices, and shiny objects. I didn't want Marin's life, but I did want something I hadn't admitted to myself until now. I wanted to be seen. That night, I received an email from my company's executive team. They were preparing for a private industry gala hosted by Dovara and its top partners. Our team at Bright Rift had been nominated for a major innovation award, one that recognized not just the technology, but the mind that had driven the project. My name was listed on the ticket, not as a guest, not as a +1, as the keynote recipient. I stared at the email for a long time, my heart beating faster than I expected. Marin's company had no idea who had built the very system they were about to celebrate. My mother had no idea that the daughter she constantly dismissed was the reason her favorite brand had just skyrocketed in user engagement. And in 2 weeks, they were going to find out. Not through a group chat, not from a social media post. They were going to see it for themselves in a room full of people who understood what I had built. I didn't respond to Mom that night. I didn't need to. My silence wasn't empty. It was loaded with every step I had taken, every hour I had spent believing in work no one cared to ask about. Because now, the stage was being set. And this time, I wouldn't be in the background. I read the email twice before I let myself believe it, then I read it again. It was real. I had been invited to accept the Innovator of the Year award at the private Devara Partner Gala. My name, in bold, listed not just as part of the team, but as the driving force behind the project. I didn't smile, not at first. Instead, I felt a strange kind of stillness settle over me. Like the moment before a storm finally breaks and the air is heavy with everything that's been held in. I had spent years working in silence, creating something I wasn't sure anyone outside of our lab would care about. Now, the company that never saw me, the family that never asked, the sister who never listened, were about to watch my work light up a ballroom full of people who did. For the first time in a long time, I let myself stop hiding. I booked a flight the next morning, direct to New York. I didn't tell anyone in my family, not Mom, not Marin. I didn't need to. This moment wasn't for them, it was for me. I opened my closet and pulled out the one dress I owned that made me feel powerful. Simple, black, sharply cut. It didn't beg for attention. It didn't have to. I made a hair appointment. I booked a makeup consultation, not for vanity, for armor. I wasn't walking into that room hoping to be seen. I was walking in as someone who already knew who she was. At work, the team rallied around me. They knew what this meant. They had seen the late nights, the whiteboards covered in code and sketches, the endless redesigns. They'd seen me lead quietly, even when louder voices took up more space. "You deserve this," my project manager said as she handed me the finalized deck for the presentation. "No one fought harder for this platform than you did." I nodded, not because I needed the validation, but because I finally believed it. As the event approached, small details started to surface. Marin would be attending as part of Devara's executive team. So would their CEO. And since the gala doubled as a celebration of internal achievements, she had invited Mom to come as her guest. I could picture it. Marin standing near the champagne bar, her signature red lipstick, Mom beaming with pride beside her. They would expect to own the room, the way they always did. They wouldn't even know I was coming. The night before the gala, I stood in front of my mirror and looked at myself differently. I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I wasn't the one who had fallen short. I was the one who had been underestimated. And tomorrow, I wasn't just walking into a room. I was stepping into my moment not to prove anything, but to claim what I had earned. The next day, I arrived early. The venue was sleek, all glass and gold, with soft music floating through the air. Staff guided me backstage and handed me my pass. My name was printed beneath the title Lead Architect Project Halo. I kept to the shadows until the ceremony began. From behind the curtain, I saw them. Marin standing near the front in a navy suit, Mom next to her dressed like she was attending a royal wedding. They looked comfortable, at home, untouchable, until the lights dimmed, until the host took the stage and began listing off the achievements of the winning project. A revolutionary leap in digital experience, a partnership that redefined what's possible, and behind it all, a woman whose vision shaped the future of our field. Please welcome Innovator of the Year, Talia Wynn. I stepped out. The room burst into applause, though I barely heard it. All I saw were their faces, my sister's stunned silence, my mother's confusion slowly turning into realization. And in that moment, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. I approached the podium and adjusted the microphone. I was told once that I was hiding, that I wasn't reaching for real success. But the truth is, sometimes success grows in quiet spaces. Sometimes it isn't loud until it has to be. And tonight, I'm honored to stand in front of the people who believed in this work when no one else was watching. The applause rose again. This time, I heard it. Not because I needed their claps, but because I had already found my voice. When I stepped off the stage, I didn't rush. I walked slowly and steadily, accepting handshakes and brief nods from strangers who had only moments ago been clapping for someone they had never heard of. I wasn't used to this kind of attention, but I didn't flinch under it. I had earned it, even if no one from my family had ever said those words out loud. As I made my way toward the reception area, I felt eyes following me, but I was only looking for two faces. Marin stood near the far wall, her drink untouched in her hand. She had the expression of someone trying to solve a riddle she didn't know she had been handed. Mom was beside her, lips slightly parted, blinking too fast. Their shoulders were tense. The spotlight hadn't landed where they thought it would. I didn't go to them. I let the moment hang in the air. I wanted them to feel it, not out of spite, but because I needed them to experience what it felt like when the person you counted out takes the stage you thought belonged to someone else. I turned to get a glass of water. That was when Marin approached me. "You didn't say you were coming," she said. Her voice was quiet, flat. She wasn't smiling. "You didn't ask," I replied. I took a sip and met her eyes. She looked me up and down like she was still trying to make sense of the version of me standing in front of her. It wasn't the version she knew. I wasn't the girl in sweatpants behind a laptop anymore. I was the woman whose work her company had just honored. "I didn't know Bright Rift was behind Halo," she said. "I didn't know you were the lead." I nodded. A lot of people didn't. Her expression flickered, but she quickly masked it. "Congratulations," she said, though it sounded rehearsed, like someone trying to be polite after losing a game they expected to win without competition. "Thanks," I said. "It means a lot coming from you." We both knew it didn't, but I didn't need it to. I had built a future that didn't rely on her applause. Then Mom approached, her heels clicking against the floor like punctuation. She was trying to smile, but her face couldn't quite decide how to land. Her eyes were wide, her voice high with forced cheer. "Talia, that was incredible. I had no idea you were working on something like this." "That's because you never asked," I said, not cruelly, just truthfully. She blinked, startled by the firmness in my tone. "You should have told me. We could have, I don't know, we could have celebrated this together." I looked at her, really looked at her. For a moment, I saw her not as the mother who always compared me to Marin, but as a woman who never learned how to recognize value unless it came gift-wrapped in titles and external praise. I had been chasing her approval for years, trying to translate my world into a language she understood. I realized now that it was never my job to make her see me. It was hers to try. "I didn't need to be celebrated," I said. "I needed to be believed in." Her eyes dropped. She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again. "I'm proud of you," she finally said, her voice soft, like she was saying it for the first time in her life. It didn't sound like performance. It sounded real. And for once, it wasn't followed by a comparison or a suggestion. Just a sentence. Just 7 words I had never heard from her, without conditions. I nodded. "Thank you." I didn't need more than that. I wasn't here to win their praise. I was here because I had already won something deeper: self-respect, clarity, and a future I built with my own hands. I left before the night ended. I didn't linger for pictures or hand out business cards. I didn't need to soak in the attention. I had done what I came to do. As I stepped outside, the cold air hit my face and grounded me. My cab pulled up. I got in, pulled the award from my bag, and set it gently on the seat beside me. It wasn't just a trophy, it was proof. Proof that even when no one is watching, what you build in silence can still shake the ground. The next morning, I woke up early even though I hadn't slept much. The award was still on the nightstand where I had placed it before falling into bed. The plaque caught the light, reflecting softly onto the wall. For a moment, I just sat up and looked at it, not with pride or disbelief, but with something steadier, calm. I didn't feel like I had conquered anything. I felt like I had finally arrived in my own life. I made coffee and checked my email. The inbox was full. Messages from colleagues, congratulatory notes from people at the event, invitations to speak at panels and consult on future projects. The recognition had momentum, but it didn't overwhelm me. I had already done the hardest part. I had kept going when no one clapped. Around 10, my phone rang. It was Dad. He never called without a reason. I answered. "I saw the photos," he said. "Read the press release, too. Looks like you really did something." "I did," I said. "I'm proud of you, kiddo. Always have been. Just figured now's a good time to say it out loud." That meant more than he knew. Not because I needed his approval, but because I respected the way he gave it. Quiet. Honest. No strings attached. Later that afternoon, Mom texted. No gifts. No emojis. Just, "I'd like to talk if you're open to it." We met for coffee at a small place halfway between her house and my apartment. She was already sitting when I arrived, hands folded around a cup she hadn't touched. When I sat down, she looked at me for a long time. "I didn't know," she said. "I really didn't. I thought you were wasting your potential. I thought you were afraid to go after real success." I waited. "But I see now," she continued. "You weren't hiding. You were building. I just wasn't paying attention to the right things." There was no apology, but for the first time, there was ownership. "I should have asked more," she added. "I should have listened instead of advising." "I wasn't asking for much," I said. "Just space to grow, without being measured against Maureen." She nodded. I was wrong to do that. We sat in silence for a moment, not uncomfortable, just full. "She's having a hard time with it," Mom said. "Marin, she's not used to sharing the spotlight." "I'm not here to take anything from her," I said. "I'm just finally standing in my own." She didn't argue. She just nodded again. When we finished our coffee, we hugged. Not the kind of hug that fixes years of misunderstanding, but the kind that says, maybe we're not stuck anymore. Maybe we can start again. That night, I walked back into my apartment and sat at my desk. I didn't feel the urge to post anything. I didn't scroll through the comments. I didn't reread the headlines. I simply opened a new project file. Because the truth is, recognition is fleeting. What stays is the work, the process, the belief you hold when no one else does. I used to think success had to look a certain way. A title, a salary, a spotlight. Now I know it's quieter than that. It lives in the nights you don't quit, the work you do without praise, the moments when you trust your path even when no one else sees the road you're walking. For years, I felt like I was standing outside the circle, watching everyone else be celebrated. Now I realize I was never outside. I was just on a different path, one I built myself. And now that I've stood on that stage, looked my mother in the eye, and spoken without fear, I don't need anyone to name my worth. I know it. And that's the part no one can take from me. If this story hit home for you, if you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told that your path didn't count because it didn't look like someone else's, know that you're not alone. You don't need permission to matter. You don't need validation to grow. Keep building. Keep going. Your voice, your work, your presence already have value. If you felt something while watching this, take a second to like the video. It helps more people find stories like this. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And drop a comment. Tell me what part of the story spoke to you most. I read every single one. And if you want more real, raw stories that speak to the moments we often stay silent about, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's more to come. Thanks for watching. Stay grounded, stay true, and don't let anyone tell you who you have to be.